Hello and welcome to another fiber adventure. So my birthday's coming up and I want to make a really special outfit for the day. I'm turning 30 on November 30th and I actually have a really big celebration planned that I'm super excited about. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but for now all you need to know is that I'm going somewhere really cold, so I want to make something really warm to take with me. I want it to be fun, I want it to be colorful, I want it to be joyful, and I want it to be something that feels like a party. I went to a local yarn store here in New Jersey and I found one skein of yarn that just absolutely sang to me. This is Feederbrook Farms Entropy DK in the color Symbiosis. It's pretty much just all my favorite colors and all the colors that I tend to wear the most in one single skein. So I knew getting it that it was something that I was not only gonna love, but something that I would actually wear. And then my gears started turning. I was like, oh, let's make a whole project around this color palette and use this yarn as kind of the starting point. So I ended up actually getting two of these skeins and I already turned one of the skeins into a hat. Please excuse the unwoven in ends. This hat is also not blocked yet, but it is done. I also found this absolutely stunning pom-pom to go on top. So after making this hat, I started kind of curating a little palette of yarns that would coordinate nicely with this and make for a fun weaving. So let me show you what I've collected. The first yarn I plan on including in this project is this really beautiful fuzzy alpaca yarn that's in that electric magenta color. I just adore this color. I think if I were to look back at my entire life and to see what colors I was consistently drawn through from early childhood all the way into adulthood, I think it would be this very bright magenta. I mean, how could you not look at this and smile? It's just such a delightful color. Next up, I ended up buying some fiber that I already spun into some hand spun yarn, and it's this merino silk blend in this really nice rich teal color. I also think having some hand spun in this project is gonna add some really fun texture. Next up, I have some wool. I got this ball a couple years ago when I was at the Scottish Yarn Festival, so this is a sentimental souvenir from a really beautiful time in my life. It's also just a delightful color that matches the pom-pom really well. And lastly, I have this really fun yarn. Not only is this color just absolutely incredible, I also just love the base that it's on. These gigantic mohair loops are gonna add so much fun texture to this project, and I am so excited to incorporate this one. I have some of my all-time favorite colors. I have some really delightful textures, and I think weaving these all together is gonna just make for a very joyful project. The first step was to take all of these skeins of yarn and to wind them into balls using a swift and a ball winder. So now I'm gonna take all my yarns and make a warp, and I think I'm going into this with kind of a plan, but nothing too specific laid out. I know that ultimately I want this scarf to match this hat, so I think the majority of my warp is gonna be this yarn right here, and then I'm gonna take all my other yarns and just kind of stripe them in randomly whenever I feel like it. So I think for this warp, I'm gonna end up winding about 3 yards worth of length, and I think I want my width to be about 150 threads. And my ultimate goal is to literally just have fun with this. I don't wanna overthink it, I don't wanna stress, I don't even wanna fuss too much with counting in all honesty. So I'm just gonna put on some music, look at all these fun colors that bring me a ton of joy, and just see what I can come up with. I should probably mention that none of these yarns are conventionally warp suitable, but I'm using them for this project anyway. I'm throwing in some sock yarn, some super fluffy Surrey alpaca, some definitely not warp strong wool, and some really irregularly spun hand spun. I knew going into this that every single one of these yarns was considered a somewhat risky choice, but I was purely motivated by color and I just wanted to see if I can make it work. And by some miracle, I actually ended up having no problems with this warp at all, and it might actually be my favorite warp that I've ever made. Good morning, it's the next day. It is absolutely dumping rain outside. I put on my coziest tie-dye outfit and I made myself a really nice hot cup of tea. I'm ready for a beautiful cozy day of weaving. So let me tell you what I have planned for this project. So originally when I was thinking about this project, I envisioned this as a scarf. I usually make scarves when I weave, and I love wrapping myself in like a giant piece of cozy handwoven fabric. But sometimes traveling with them can be a little bit much, especially because I tend to make these like very thick, chunky, kind of all over the place pieces of fabric. But a new thing that I've discovered and become obsessed with lately is the idea of making a hero cowl or a v-cowl. This is essentially a technique for taking your fabric and turning it into like a continuous loop so you can wrap it around yourself just like a normal cowl. And I've just been loving that. So I was thinking that could be a fun thing to explore in this project. I already have one video up on my channel all about my first attempt at making a hero cowl, which was definitely not perfect, but I learned a lot doing it and I had a lot of fun doing that. And if you want to check it out, it'll be in this video's description. So since then, I've done a lot more research into how to do a hero cowl like properly, and I'm ready to take it on and give it another try. So yeah. Let's get to it. First, I'm gonna wind a whole bunch of bobbins using pretty much just these yarns that I included in my warp. The first step in the process of making a v-cowl is to leave super extra long fringes at the beginning of the weaving. So I cranked my warp forward until I had advanced about a foot of my warp. Then I started weaving with a few rows of a white waste yarn just to get everything going. And then I started weaving with my actual weft yarns. After weaving about an inch, I placed a piece of masking tape right where this weaving met the waste yarn. And then I just kept weaving until I had about 70 inches of fabric. As usual with my projects, I wasn't really following a pattern or trying to create any kind of a specific design. I was just following my impulses and having fun playing with these yarns that just genuinely brought me so much joy. I just love these bold and bright and cheerful colors. I actually ended up showing one of my friends what I was working on, and she commented that I didn't curate a color palette, I curated a color volume. And that made me laugh because, I mean, she's not wrong. In particular, the color of this boucle yarn and also the color of the pom-pom of my hat has definitely become one of my favorite colors over the years. But I just can't figure out what to call it. I usually just say like a swampy green or like a yucky green, but I just find that so unflattering for a color that I genuinely find so beautiful. So earlier this year, I asked you guys when I first showed you this pom-pom what you would call this color, and I just wanted to share some of the names that you guys gave me because they made me smile. So we got green gold, moss green, earthy green, acid green, chartreuse, citron, dark dandelion, grungy green, crusty mustard, booger green, and goose turd. And honestly, I think all of these work somehow. After weaving my 65-ish inches of fabric, it was time to do the actual v-cowl bit. First, I unwrapped my fabric from the loom and I let it hang. Then I removed the original knots that I used to tie my warp to the apron bar and I dropped these to the floor. Next, I used another wooden bar that I had laying around and I secured it to my apron bar, sandwiching the fabric in between. way, when I cranked everything back, the fabric was caught between the two bars. Okay, so now my fabric is under tension just like it was before, but I have access now to the first part of the fabric I wove and all these super long warp end fringes. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna remove all of these waste yarn pieces. Then I found the very first warp end on the very edge of my fabric and I wove it in as the weft. And then I wove in all the following warp ends, making sure that I was adding each one in the order that they were threaded. This was kind of a tedious process, but it was so satisfying to see the fringe become weft stripes. And they were crossing with themselves as the warp to make a really fun kind of plaid-like look on my fabric. I also ended up securing the fringe on the left side with a really simple overhand knot, just because it was much easier to do this now while the fabric was still under tension. Once everything was woven in, I removed my fabric from the loom. Then I tied up the rest of my fringe, twisted the fringes, and trimmed them. I wet finished my fabric in some warm water and wool wash and then hung it up to dry. And then it was time to head off on my birthday adventure. My birthday tradition, for as long as I can possibly remember, has always been to celebrate with Swiss fondue, both cheese and chocolate. And for my 30th birthday, my husband and my family completely surprised me with a trip to Switzerland to, in their words, try the real thing. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime total surprises that still doesn't really feel real. So for my birthday, Ryan and I went to the top of Mount Pilatus in Lucerne, and we had fondue at nearly 7,000 feet. And it was honestly magical. Cold air, hot cheese, stunning views, and of course I wore my cowl. It felt so special to have something handmade with me in that moment. Something that will always remind me of this day, but also feel like a little symbol of new beginnings in this next decade of my life. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing these really special moments with me. If you want to join me for whatever adventures might come next, don't forget to subscribe and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!